Hello Year 10. This is the fourth booklet and the fourth unit that we're going to be starting on. It's called B1.4 Circulatory System in Humans, and it's all about the heart and the blood vessels and the blood. Hopefully by now you will have received the B1.4 Circulatory System in Humans booklets. So you will need this for today's lesson and for the next 6 lessons. This is a relatively short unit of work, so it's not going to take us long to get through this, a couple of weeks. When you open up the booklet, you will see on the inside cover the syllabus, the scheme of work. And the scheme of work you can see here is listed as what we call the spec or specification statement. So we've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. And then on the right hand side, we've given you the teacher's specification statement. So you can see the actual detail that they require you to understand here. So it starts off with work on the blood, which we're actually going to do at the end of the lesson. Also at the end of the booklet, and then it goes on to the heart and the flow of blood around the heart and what we mean by this double circulatory system, and then it goes on to diseases of the heart and risk factors for cardiovascular disease. So you will need today a red and a blue pen or pencil because we're going to give a basic overview of the heart. So the lesson objective today is to learn to understand what components make up the circulatory system. So when we talk about this word components, what do we mean? Components is a posh word for parts. So basically your circulatory system is made up of your heart, which is the big muscle pump, okay? The blood vessels, so the tubes that carry the blood around the heart, around the body, and the blood. So the blood is needed to be pumped around the body to deliver that all-important oxygen that we learned about in the respiration and respiratory system unit. And also the nutrients that we learned about in the unit on the digestive system as well. So the nutrients are things like the glucose to give us energy, but also amino acids and fatty acids and glycerol from where fats have been digested and proteins digested to amino acids. So these nutrients, like glucose in particular and oxygen, need to be delivered to the cells for respiration. So you can see how the last couple of units all link in together. The system also removes our waste products such as carbon dioxide and water as water vapor, okay, when we breathe it out through our mouth. So just a few facts about the heart. It's an amazingly hard-working muscle. It's completely different to the muscle that makes up your biceps and your triceps and all those other muscles in your body that help to move your limbs, because this heart muscle never gets tired. If it does, you're in big trouble if the heart muscle gets tired. It's around about the size of an adult fist. So if you make your hand into a fist shape and look at the size that it takes up, that's around about the size of your heart. And it's strong enough to keep that blood pumping around your whole body 24 hours a day, never stopping for a rest. And most of the time, you forget it's even there. You don't know where it is. So where does the heart actually sit in your body? Well, if you've made your hand into a fist, use your right hand to do this, okay? Even if you're left-handed, use your right hand to do this, make it into a fist. And what I want you to do is I want you to find the middle of your chest where there is what we call your sternum, your breastbone. And place your fist hand, okay, or right-handed fist, okay, on the sternum, but just literally a fraction towards the left side of your body. So it's not sitting bang in the middle of your chest, it's just slightly to the left. Not all the way over to the left-hand side of your body, okay, but just slightly to the left. And with most people, okay, we find that heart, okay, is nestled between the lungs, and it means that the shapes of the lungs aren't symmetrical. They aren't exactly the same. So I know sometimes in diagrams of cross sections of the body, you see the lungs as like two triangles and the heart sitting in between nice and neatly. It's actually kind of tucked in between, if you like, lobes of the lungs, okay? So our little starter activity, I want to know what you know about the heart already. So we've given you some words here, and you've got these words in your booklet, so you should be on page 1. I know it says page 1 and 2 is the syllabus, but it also then starts page 1, the circulatory system. So fill in the missing words here. We've got, here are the words provided at the bottom here, and I want you to pause the video and look at the paragraph that you've got in your book and see if you can fill this in. And it does say you can use each word more than once. Pause the video. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go at filling that in. So the first missing word should be the circulatory system. Careful with your spelling of system. Carries blood around your body in tubes called veins, blood vessels. Your blood takes oxygen and glucose, so they're the two substances we've already mentioned, to all the cells in the body. So obviously that's for respiration, to release energy. Remember, we don't say energy is made, it's released. And there are 3 types of blood vessels. You have arteries that are large and carry blood away from the heart. Nice, easy way to remember that is A for artery, A for away. Veins are also large, but there is a difference between their structure, and they carry blood towards the heart. So give yourself a tick for each one you've got right. If you've got any wrong, then please correct them. And can you give yourself a score out of 6 for that first section? Now, underneath that passage, we've got this diagram, okay? And this diagram's got several things it wants us to do to it. First of all, it wants us to add the missing words, okay, where there are these spaces, these lines. But also, this is where we're going to need the 2 different colours, the red and the blue. We're going to take our red colour, and I want you to colour in this little box here where there's a key. That's going to be our artery in that box there. So arteries are going to be shown in red. And then in blue, we're going to colour in our veins. Like that. So colour those boxes in first of all for me. You can pause the video to give yourself a chance to get those coloured in. So we're going to add first of all the labels, okay, to this diagram. So this organ, we can see it here, okay, in the middle of the heart, slightly to the left-hand side. And whenever we see the heart drawn, it is always drawn as if it appears in our body. So this is the left-hand side of the person, even though it's appearing on your right. And this is the right-hand side of the person. Can you just write that on your diagram, because that will help you from getting confused later on. So this organ is called the heart, and its job is to pump blood. We've already seen these organs before. This organ is called the lung, and its job is to allow oxygen to get into the blood, and we know that it also picks up the carbon dioxide in the lungs as well to remove those out through the respiratory system. The tiny blood vessels that surround each of the tiny little grape-like structures in the lungs, remember we called those grape-like structures the alveoli. The tiny blood vessels that surround them are called the capillaries. So in our passage earlier, we wrote that there are 2 types of blood vessels, the arteries and the veins. But there are 3, as it says, and the third type are the capillaries. So we're going to learn a little bit more about those later on. So we should be able to see in the middle of the diagram here the heart, and this is what we're going to focus on over the next few lessons. As I said, this is the left side, this is the right side, so we've got the left lung and the right lung, okay? Your left ear, your right ear, your left arm, your right arm, okay? And we're going to start coming in from the left-hand side of the body. And we're going to colour in the artery, okay, first of all, in red, that leaves the left side of the heart. And this is our main artery leaving the left side of the heart, okay? Apologies. Let's go over that again so you can see it. So here's our main artery. Now we call this main artery the aorta. And you should be able to see at this point that the aorta branches off, okay, into 3 distinct areas, okay? It's going off to the head up here, where it's going to take oxygenated blood all the way up to the head and the brain. And we can see that it goes to both the left and the right sides of the head. In your neck, you have these main arteries called carotid arteries, okay? So this artery, the aorta, is coming from the left side of the heart. But it's also taking blood that contains lots of oxygen down to your left arm. Your right arm, apologies. See, even I get confused. And to your left arm. So making sure that that blood containing the oxygen is getting to all the places that it's required. And you should be able to see, I've got to put my glasses on for this, okay, that also it branches off here and it tucks behind the heart and goes behind the heart, carrying oxygenated blood to your torso. Your torso is the rest of your body, okay? What we call your trunk, okay? Your middle part, your tummy, and going down to the legs. And obviously this diagram only shows you the top part of your body, okay? It will go down to the left leg over here and the right leg over here, okay? So that is the main artery that carries oxygenated blood. Now most of the time arteries carry oxygenated blood, and this is why we've drawn them in red, okay? However, there are some arteries that don't carry oxygenated blood, okay? So, and some veins that don't carry oxygenated blood and carry deoxygenated blood. So we're now going to go, the blood's gone off to the head, to the body, okay? And it's dropped off its oxygen, okay? And it's now what we call deoxygenated. And this deoxygenated blood carrying very little oxygen, is now going to come back from the arms, from the legs, from the brain, into the right side of the heart. So here it is coming up. We're going to colour this bit in blue. So this is a vein. Veins bring blood back to the heart, whereas arteries always carry blood away, as we mentioned earlier. So you can see it coming in to the right side of the heart here, and it's also coming from the head. And this little kind of like mass of squiggles up here in the head is not representing the brain. These actually represent the tiny capillaries, and the capillaries allow the blood to get into all the tiny little places to drop off the oxygen, okay, very importantly to those brain cells to keep your brain functioning. So we've got both the left and the right side of the brain is bringing that, what we call deoxygenated blood, okay, back to the heart. And here it's coming up from the left arm all the way back here into the right side of the heart. And also remember, from our legs and our torso, you can see it's coming up. Can you see it kind of does a little bit of a kind of like circuit like that? So this deoxygenated blood is coming into the right side of the heart, and the right side of the heart plays a really important role, because what it's going to do is it's going to take the blood that has very little oxygen and it's going to take it to the lungs where it can pick up oxygen. So can you see this blood vessel coming out of the top of the heart here? We call this blood vessel, because it's leaving the heart, it's an artery, okay? It is going away from the heart. Now, because it's deoxygenated, okay, we've coloured it in blue, but our key says we want it in red, so we need to make sure that artery, okay, is coloured in red, but it actually contains deoxygenated blood, okay? It's only going to pick up the oxygen when it gets here. So we've got veins coming in blue, arteries going away, okay, in red. So we've got one more vein to colour in blue, and this vein has come from the lungs. Now, it would normally be carrying oxygenated blood, so we would normally colour it in red, but it's coming into this side of the heart, and I'm actually going to colour this side of the heart in red. So you can see this side of the heart, the left side, contains blood containing lots of oxygen. The right side of the heart contains blood containing very little oxygen. So hopefully you've labelled that up. Pause the video to give yourself a chance and make sure you've coloured those in probably a lot neater than I have, okay, on that diagram. Okay, so on the opposite page, page 2, we have a little reading task for you to do. So it tells us that the body's main internal transport system is called your circulatory system. I like to think of it as being, I suppose, a little bit like our rail system. So the train is the equivalent of the blood. The track is the equivalent of all the blood vessels around your body. And the people on the train and the substances on the train, okay, whatever it's delivering, are like the substances that we transport around our body, okay, that we need and also transport to get rid of. So it is the link between the cells inside the body, which have certain requirements, what they need. They need nutrients like glucose and oxygen and water, and the environment outside the body, which supplies those requirements. So glucose we get from eating food, from digesting it. It gets into our bloodstream in our small intestines, where the substances will diffuse across and get absorbed into the blood. The oxygen passes into our bloodstream in our lungs, in those little alveoli that we looked at in the unit on respiration and the respiratory system. So it's the outside environment that's bringing those substances into our body via those different systems, our digestive system, respiratory system, and it's the circulatory system's job to transport that around the body. It's also the circulatory system's job to actually transport the substances that we don't want, the waste, back to the places where they can be removed. So carbon dioxide is transported back to the lungs so we can breathe it out. And waste substances like urea are taken to the kidneys so the kidneys can make urine from them. So use the information on the next slide, okay, to answer the questions. And you've got this information in your book. So the two questions I want you to answer, I want to know what are the major parts of the circulatory system and what are the major functions. Another word for function is job. Okay, so if that helps to clarify, to make it a little bit easier. So these questions are at the bottom of page 2. The information I want you to read, okay, is also on page 2 above the questions, but I'm going to read through with you with it, okay? So the circulatory system is made up of your heart, your blood, and your blood vessels. The heart pumps the blood through the blood vessels to every part of the body and back again. One return trip takes about 30 seconds. The function, remember we said the word function is another word for job, of the circulatory system is to carry materials around the body. Now, we've already mentioned digested food, things like glucose, but it also carries water. It carries oxygen from the lungs. It carries the waste products of respiration, which are normally carbon dioxide and water. It carries hormones from various glands that are produced in your body. It carries energy in the form of heat from respiration. Remember, we said in respiration it releases energy as well as carbon dioxide and water. It carries, very importantly, your white blood cells, which are really important for your defense, and antibodies. So we're going to learn a little bit more about white blood cells and their role later on in this booklet, and you learn a little bit more about antibodies in detail in year 11. And it also carries something called fibrinogen and other dissolved chemicals which form part of the blood plasma. Fibrinogen is very important for blood clotting, okay, to help blood to clot. The circulatory system contains 3 types of blood vessels, which we've already mentioned in the first part of the lesson. Arteries, which carry blood away from the heart. Capillaries, which connect the smallest arteries to the smaller veins. And veins, which carry blood back to the heart. There are also valves in the heart. Now, if you think of valves as being like a set of swing doors, where a substance can pass through in one direction, but if it tries to turn back on itself to go back through the doors the opposite way, the valves shut, the doors shut. So there are valves in your heart, and there are also valves in veins. And these stop the blood flowing back the wrong way, and they keep the traffic going in the same direction. They keep the blood flowing in the same direction. There are no valves in arteries, and the reason why is because arteries go away from the heart. The blood is at such high pressure being pumped away from the heart that it doesn't need the valves to keep the blood flowing in one direction, because it's the force of the heart pumping that actually pushes the blood out of the arteries. So the pressure of the blood being pumped by the heart is sufficient to keep the blood flowing through the arteries. So pause the video at this point. Remind yourself of the 2 questions. I want to know what are the major parts of the circulatory system, and I want to know what are the major functions of the circulatory system. So if we go back to these questions, you should have got for the major parts of the circulatory system, the heart, the blood, and the blood vessels. So that was literally in the first sentence. You may have also given me a bit more detail about these blood vessels by telling me the arteries, capillaries, and veins. And you might also have given me a bit more information and told me that there are valves. Okay, so the definite 3 heart, blood vessels, and if you can name the blood vessels and you can identify that they're valves both in the heart and in the veins, well done. The major functions of the circulatory system, well, there are lots of them. Okay, so I'm going to skip back to this again so you can see it. I don't expect you to write this word for word, but you could say it carries food, and you could use the word glucose and water. It carries oxygen. It carries the waste products of respiration, so that would be our carbon dioxide and our water. It carries the hormones. It carries heat, energy from the cell's respiration. It carries the white blood cells. You could even say, you've probably identified these 2 back in year 7. Red blood cells, okay? And you may have got this word fibrinogen and other chemicals, okay? So you might have run out of room at the bottom of page 2 because you've only got 3 lines to try and cram as much of that information. So it's got pretty major functions, okay, that it needs to carry out. Now, the next lesson you're going to do a heart dissection, a virtual heart dissection, If you are able to get hold of a heart from the supermarket, Tesco's is normally pretty good at stocking them in the meat section. So you have to go to normally quite a large Tesco's to find these. If you go to the lamb aisle, they normally sell lamb's livers, lamb's kidneys and lamb's hearts, and they come in packs of 3. So if you wanted to have a little go at dissecting a lamb's heart at home using the instructions from the video that I'm going to pop up and also the instructions that are in the booklet, you would be more than welcome to do that. But make sure if you are using a knife, be very, very careful and always cut away from yourself, cut on a chopping board as well, okay? And just take care. The heart dissection video that I'm going to show you, okay, is actually of an ox's heart, and it's huge, okay? Lamb's hearts are normally around about the size of human hearts, sometimes even a little bit smaller, okay? So if you do spot any in the supermarket when you're out shopping, that's the kind of size that we normally dissect. But the teacher is going to show you an ox's heart because it's much, much larger and it's clearer for you to see on the video. Thank you.